Now that was a recreation of a moment from the chaotic opening of a level 9 bug mission on Fenrir 3, where I found myself desperately fending off against what seemed like the entire power plant garrison using what is arguably the most peculiar primary in Helldivers 2, the Constitution, aka the Civil War Superstar. But why do I call it that? A gun's a gun. If it's killing the enemies of managed democracy, then all is good, right? Well, the reason I describe the Constitution as peculiar is because, like video game journalism, the Constitution is kind of a meme. Who would have guessed, right? The World War I styled rifle not being the best primary in the game? Who could have seen this coming? But do you really know the Constitution? Because, unlike video game journalism, it's still useful, for when we lay out the weapon stats, on paper there's nothing really wrong with it. It's essentially a diligence counter sniper that has 20 less damage and uses rounds reload instead of traditional magazines. However, if it wasn't obvious before, there are a few drawbacks to this weapon, mainly its lack of a scope and magazines. Firstly, the Constitution only has iron sights, no scope of any kind, which makes it challenging to use as a marksman rifle, because, as you can probably guess, marksman rifles are very effective at exploiting the weak points of enemies, something that requires precision, a thing that the iron sights greatly hinder, especially when Arrowhead is hellbent on making sure players can't see what they're shooting at. Like, come on Johan, I'm already going blind, you don't have to rub it in, man. And secondly, the Constitution doesn't use magazines, it instead reloads its rounds one at a time through a bolt action mechanism. This does two things. It significantly reduces its fire rate compared to the other marksman rifles. And secondly, it limits the gun to only carrying 5 bullets in the chamber, 1/3 of the counter sniper's magazine. These drawbacks make the Constitution an unforgiving weapon to use, giving players little room to make errors, unless dying is on your shopping list. But it isn't all doom and gloom, no, for there is a silver lining to the Constitution, a hidden treasure that isn't so hidden. And what may I be referring to? Well, it's simple really, the Bayonet. The major selling point of the Constitution, and what makes it such excellent meme material, is the bayonet stuck to the front of the bugger. But this is no ordinary knife, mate. No simple decoration to please the Helldivers 1 veterans. Nope, this bayonet's got teeth. Not only does it increase the Constitution's melee range and make its melee attacks silent to enemies, but it also increases the Constitution's melee damage from the usual 50 to 110. And yes, the peak physique 100% increase to melee damage does apply to the Constitution, allowing you to smite anything that has 220 health or less. And on top of that, the bayonet has an armor penetration score of 3, which means, theoretically, you can kill a tank if you're stabbed it enough times. It's not what I would call an optimal strategy, but you know, them's the breaks, I guess. Now, when it comes to the Constitution, there is a question, a discussion, a conversation that has surrounded this weapon ever since its release. And that is, should the Constitution have an armor penetration score of 4? Now, at the time of writing and recording this video, the Constitution has an armor penetration score of 3, AP3, which is a perfectly serviceable AP rating for a primary. However, ever since its secondary cousin, the Senator, got its armor penetration score changed to 4. Players have debated whether a similar change for the Constitution would be beneficial. As I mentioned before, the Constitution does have significant drawbacks, downsides that hinder its effectiveness not only as a primary but as a marksman rifle too. To put it into perspective, the primaries of Helldivers 2 offer a great amount of utility to the player, allowing them to counter/cover the shortcomings of their loadouts. However, when using the Constitution, you give up almost all of that utility for a gun that is mediocre. And so, as someone who uses this gun almost religiously at this point, what are my 2 cents on the matter? Should the Constitution have an armor penetration score of 4? No. Now, before folks start clawing down my throat about the apparent idiocy coming out of my mouth, yes, the Constitution would benefit greatly from having its AP increased to 4. It would help mitigate many of the downsides by allowing it to essentially ignore armor. It would make the Constitution more forgiving to use, but it doesn't need it to work. Would it help? Yes, absolutely. But I've managed to take it on many super Helldives without any issues. Actually, that's why I started using the Constitution so much. Because for me, the joy of using the Constitution is in the challenge it creates for the player. You give up the comfort of utility and power in exchange for growth in skill, knowledge, and understanding of Helldivers 2. Because if you want to use the Constitution effectively at higher difficulties, you will need to get better at the game. And I don't just mean improving your aim, but also your positioning, awareness, knowledge of enemy weak points, and understanding what your equipment can and cannot do. Because, as I've said before, it's not the forgiving type. If you make a mistake, you better be quick on your toes or you're going to get punished for it. Now, I know this is not for everyone. I understand most players just want to kill things and move on with their day. That's why I'm not opposed to Arrowhead making this kind of change. It does benefit the Constitution and make it more appealing to the broader player base. But in my humble opinion, and it is just an opinion, the Constitution doesn't need AP4 to work at higher difficulties. It just requires more from the player to get it to work effectively. And to me, that feels right at home for the weapon. Besides, if Arrowhead was going to change anything about the Constitution, it should be the melee. Like, come on Arrowhead, increase the melee damage to a flat 180, 200 perhaps. Hell, give it the AP4, AP5, why not? Let me stab a factory stride to death, Arrowhead. You don't have the balls to do it. So, with this clearer understanding of what the Constitution's strengths and weaknesses are, how do you, an extension of Lady Liberty's will, use the Constitution? Well, it's simple really. You don't. I kid, but what is important to remember is that the Constitution is a marksman rifle. Yes, it may have a bayonet attached to it, but it's still a marksman rifle. Therefore, my best advice for using the Constitution is to use it like a marksman rifle. Take engagements at medium range, go for enemy weak points, exercise patience with your shots, but if something small does get a bit too close, you stab it. Remember, your melee does a flat 110, that's nothing to sneeze at. But what I find more important to understand is what you should be taking with the Constitution. Fortunately, the Constitution does synergize well with many support stratagems, secondaries, and grenades, leading to a variety of different combinations for players to choose from. However, I have found that your choice in backpack to be of greater importance, because it sort of becomes your foundation for the rest of your loadout. So, let's go over a few of my favorites, shall we? The guard dogs are excellent at providing extra firepower to a Helldiver's arsenal, especially when that firepower is capable of attacking on its own. The drone's targeting is a bit dodgy sometimes, like, come on, why are you shooting the Hulk? Shoot at the Robert, you dill! But having the extra support does help with keeping enemies at bay, which is something that the Constitution benefits greatly from due to it being a marksman rifle. Now, the guard dog is excellent on the butt front because of its medium armor penetration and its fast fire rate, while the rover variant is excellent on the bug front because of its seemingly infinite uptime due to it being energy based. We're not going to talk about the third variant because it kinda stinks. Get it? Because it's the gas one. The shield generator pack gives Helldivers a much needed boost to their durability, allowing them to take hits and make decisions that they wouldn't normally be able to walk away from. This is great for the Constitution because, well, at some point you're going to be caught a bullet short from killing your target, which means you either need to do what all Constitution users should do and charge the enemy head on, or do the sensible thing and run for your life! Without the shield generator pack, players may not be able to make the distance before being killed, but with it equipped, the odds are most certainly in their favor, giving players the satisfaction of making terrible decisions and getting away with it. Because who needs cover, am I right? The jump pack is God's gift to mankind, a tool designed to grant Helldivers an almost unrestricted level of movement during missions. The whole map opens up to you in ways it couldn't before. New paths, strategies, and new appointments to see your chiropractor. The jump pack allows you to get in and get out, slip in between the cracks and evade enemies. Well, if you're a wuss, that is. Real Helldivers don't run, they go in! The guard dogs may provide extra firepower, and the shield generator pack may boost your durability, but the jump pack... The jump pack allows you to go in hard! So, to sum it up, it's a great mobility tool. But we've only just scratched the surface. Hate big crowds? Try the flamethrower. It's not great against the bots, but against the bugs, delicious. Medium rare, more like charcoal, baby. Hate big things? Try the quasar cannon, for things don't tend to live long without a head. And hey, is that thing made from material? Guess what this rifle does? There is so much to talk about when it comes to all the possible combinations for the Constitution. But if I was to do that, this video would no longer be a Helldiver's Guide to the Constitution, but a Helldiver's Guide to Helldivers 2, and I don't have that kind of time. So, to summarize this section, explore your options. There's plenty to choose from, just make sure you do it with care, because your choices in loadout will determine how difficult using the Constitution will be for you. And that's sort of the whole point of the Constitution. It's not supposed to be the best primary in the game, but in capable hands, it can hold its own. And yes, it doesn't benefit from the utility or the power of more meta guns, for most primaries in Helldivers 2 are just better than it in every way. But I'd say that most players only give the Constitution a fleeting glance, only looking once at its downsides before writing it off entirely. It's what I did the first time I picked it up. But when I gave it another look, a proper, thorough look, I saw an opportunity to challenge myself. Because, sure, it's not easy to use, nor forgiving to newcomers, but to me, it's been a worthwhile investment. And as I said before, I know my take on the Constitution is not for everyone. Most players don't tend to derive satisfaction from banging their head against a metaphorical wall like I do, okay? I understand that I happen to be a bit weird, but I believe there is merit in how I've approached this weapon. Now, is the Constitution still a bit of a meme? Absolutely, especially when you decide to do stupid things like I do, but it's so much more than that. The Constitution is an invitation, provoking players to take a gamble, to give up the comfort of utility and power in exchange for growth in their skill, knowledge, and understanding of Helldivers 2. So, if you haven't already, give it a try, an honest, fair go. Play with it, experiment with it, push it and yourself to the limit, because by undertaking this proposition, you will know the Constitution. A huge thank you goes out to Helldivers.io, the DiversDex, and the folks at the Helldivers Archive Discord server. And another huge thank you goes out to Crow's Eye Win for their hilarious art contributions. A link to her Instagram can be found in the description below. Thank you for watching, and take care.